Hey guys, Lee here. Got another C# tutorial for you. This time we'll be focusing on classes. So, firstly, what is a class? Well, in my words, it's a structure of code that can contain variables, functions, it can do loads of other stuff. For now, all we're going to focus on is the first bit, the variables and functions. And then I'll do another tutorial at some point later on covering what else you can do with them, but there's really so much that you can do. So we'll get straight into it then. How do I create a class? Well, when you come in and create a new console application like I've done here, you're already given a class. It's called program. Now I mentioned in my last tutorial I'll go over what this actually means. So this means that all code that's inside these braces here belongs to this class called program. Now, classes are used to keep similar logic together in one place. So say I had a person class, that would keep all functions and variables about that person inside one bit of code that I know I can manipulate people or manipulate a person with. So I'll demonstrate this. I'll right click on my project, go to add and class, and we're going to name it animal. So here we go, I've got my class called animal. Now I'm going to go through this later on, but at the start of this class we want to put public. So it reads public space class space animal. And this just means that we won't have any issues demonstrating the code initially. So now I've got my class, what can I do with it? Well, as we saw from the last one, we've got functions that can be added to it. So I'm going to do in here a string and then name the function hello, and that's it. I need to return a variable, and for now I'm just going to do an empty string. I'm going to do public again in front of that just to keep the compiler errors away, but again I'll go through that at a later point. So this is now a function that belongs to the class animal. How do I access that then? So back into program here, I'm going to write animal, then going to write dog equals new animal, and then open and close the brackets, just like you do with a function, except you write new in front of it. And what this does is it, inside this dog variable here, which is of type animal, it will initialize the dog variable so that it's got all the necessary functions and variables in it that we want. So on the next line here I can go dog dot, and then I get access to all manner of things. There's a few built-in ones like equals, toString, get type and get hashcode, but we'll not be using them right now. We just want to look at hello, which you can see is accessible from here. So I'm going to do hello. I'm going to switch back to my animal here and make hello return insert greeting here. So from here I'm going to do console.writeLine, and I'm going to copy and paste this dog.hello into there and then move the semicolon, and then I'm going to do console.readLine afterwards. So now what we should see is a console application, first line saying insert greeting here, exclamation mark, and that's it. Press F5 and that's exactly what happens. So that's cool. We can also say public string food. So if I wanted to get the type of food that a specific animal had, I could have a function for that, which was return, and then if I wanted a variable as well that this animal had, which was the food type, I could go up here and say private string, and then my naming convention is an underscore in front of it and a lowercase f, food equals, and then I'm going to say peanuts, and I'm just going to return that variable. Now you're probably thinking, how has that got access to that? Well, that's because it's in the same function, in the same class. There's all sorts of things you can do, but this here is hiding this little bit of logic. So you can do this dot and then underscore food. Now Visual Studio here is telling me you don't need this. You can simplify this line by removing the word this. But that is basically what's happening here. Because this function is a member of this class, it has access to the variable food. If I go out into program here and say dog dot underscore food, you can see there's a red squiggly that comes out. And this is saying it's inaccessible due to its protection level. Now this is really useful because that means you can keep all sorts of secret information about that object inside this class. So I could also have private int underscore age equals 5. I could also have private int underscore legs equals 4. And back in this program we don't have access to any of those yet. So there's a lot of important things that you can do with these accesses, but the only ones we're going to cover are private and public for now. So I'm also going to create one up here which is private string underscore greeting, and then I'm going to say woof for now, and then I'm going to copy and paste that greeting and get rid of that string that we did there. So now this dog.hello string will return woof, and we're also going to copy and paste that and change this function to dog.food. So now we should get two things, woof and peanuts. That's exactly what we're expecting. So that is what functions and variables happen with classes. That's how that happens, and that's what they do. But what if I wanted to, instead of doing this, which gets done as soon as the program starts, what if I wanted to control what happened with that? Well, I could also do in here food equals, and then put anything in here, and that would work. That would work absolutely fine because I have access to that food variable and I can set it to whatever I want. What I'm going to do instead is do a constructor here, and I'll write public, and then I'm going to write animal, open and close brackets, and then do my braces. So that looks just like a function, except it doesn't have a return type, and that's exactly what it is, because it returns itself. It returns the class you're creating. So in here I'm going to say legs equals 4, age equals 5, and then I'm just going to remove those equal signs from up here. And that, as you can see, that happens, well, that looks absolutely fine. The compiler's got no problems with that. I'm also going to change the food here in this function, in the constructor, to cabbage, because this animal likes eating cabbage. Can I go back into here, just back into the class actually for a second, and just show you that we've got up here the animal class, we've got the food is equal to peanuts, we've got in the constructor, now this function, basically a function gets called when the object is created, when we do the new class phrasing, and then that says food equals cabbage. So we know from this here that the animal class will get the food variable set to cabbage because that happens last. That happens last in the execution. Let's just go and have a look at it because I think I'm confusing myself at some points here. So as you can see, it goes woof and then cabbage. As I say, this is because we set it to peanuts here when the program's created, and then here where we do public animal, which is the same as doing this new animal here, it then sets the food to cabbage. And that's cool. So that's constructors, that's accessors, which are these private and public here, that's member variables, which are these, and member functions, which are these down here. Now, I mentioned in the last one about static functions, and what do they mean? How do I work with them? Well, static functions sort of break things a little bit. As you can see in this program.cs here, this main function is a static function. So what if I wanted a function that did something in the animal thing, but wasn't actually something that the animal would do? Well, I would come down here and say static void, that's just going to be my return type. I'm going to say static function. Just created a static function there. Then in here I'm going to do console.writeLine static function was called. Now how do I access that? Well, as you can see from the console.writeLine here, the console is the same color as the animal keyword we've got here, and that just means that that console keyword there is actually a class. Well, we're going to go up here and say animal dot, and again with these accessors, you'll see here I haven't put one on. Now, not putting an accessor on, such as public or private, actually defaults what you've just written to be a private variable. So in the constructor here, I could do static function, and that's accessible from here because it's a private member function, or it's a private static function. So if I go to the bottom here and put public, you can see that we now have access to static function in there. So I'm going to call that there, and then that is just like this here. Console.readLine, console.writeLine. We've also got animal.static function. I'm going to press F5 here, and you can see static function was called, then woof, then cabbage. So these static functions they're useful, but they don't have access to any of the member functions. So what could they actually be used for? Well, they've been used in many ways to create factory methods, which is a way of saying this function is going to take care of creating a new variable for you, it's going to take care of creating a new class for you, it's going to take care of doing everything, because there might be a set order in which things need to happen. So that is one use for them. Another use, and this is not necessarily wrong, but it's tripped a lot of people up, is that when a new person to C# comes along and wants to just write code like we did before in all the previous tutorials, where they just want to write code and they don't know about classes yet, they will just come along and go static void do something, and everything they write will be static. And this is not necessarily bad, as I said, but it can lead to some tricky things later on when you're trying to separate out all of your different logic and everything like that. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with doing that, especially in C#. Now, this tutorial is getting a bit long, so I'm going to stop it here, and then we're going to pick it up another point in the future and do more advanced stuff with classes, such as inheritance. We're going to learn how to make an animal into an actual dog. We're going to make a cat as well, but they all use the base logic of animal. So thanks for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one.